What's good, YouTube, and welcome to another KaibaHacksDartz Yu-Gi-Oh video. Today we're coming at you with a new DIY kind of mini-series on the channel, and this is Recreating Dungeon Dice Monsters Part 1. Now, it's going to be obviously a couple episodes worth of building it together, but we're going to try and do it as cheaply as possible, because obviously Dungeon Dice Monsters figures can be a bit expensive if you look up some of those prices. Same with the cards as well, or just any bits of the set. So obviously it's going to be a bit of a process, but it includes dice. You know, I just have these for show, just to have something to show off. But a lot of it, I figure, can be recreated with just using dice, but we will kind of build pieces as we go to try and make it as legitimate as possible. So obviously, I think there's a couple pieces. 6, I figure. Dice is going to be the first one. So we already have a video on how to make a 6-sided dice, which is what they use in Dungeon Dice Monsters. And obviously this isn't what we'd use, this exact dice, but we'd recreate maybe using blanks and put on the correct faces of the Dungeon Dice Monsters. You know, whatever pips or whatever sides whatever you call it. So we got to start with the dice, and I figure it'll be easy to recreate these. I'll have the link to this video, how to make these, in the description. But like I said, it'll be the same thing, or possibly in the comment section as well. But same thing, recreating those dice, I figure, will be one of the easier bits. Next would be the mat. So I figure using inch-by-inch grid paper, which is what we have here, we can use that to make the Dungeon Dice mat, both kind of the starter set area and the advanced area. We'll just kind of have it sectioned off. But I figure this will be a starter set kind of build, and then if I have some people who are interested in playing it, or maybe just building a couple extra pieces or showing off some more added bits, then I'll continue making some more for the set. Next would be figures. And I've already made a video on this, on how to make Yu-Gi-Oh figures, and we just basically do the same thing, and they already have an inch-by-inch square base, which you could make circular, and you can make it whatever color you want, but I'd figure we'd go with kind of black bases for the bottom. There is a Beaver Warrior in I think the Japanese release of some of them, so that's a whole other thing we have to kind of get into with the cards and stuff. But I figure for the figures, we could do this. It adds some color. You could possibly double-side it if you want. I'll probably just go single-sided, at least to start. And this pretty much covers everything, except for maybe the Monster Lord and the Knight of Twin Swords. For Monster Lord, I figure you could just kind of put whatever, or you maybe use like Dream Clown or something that kind of looks similar to a Monster Lord. And for the Knight of Twin Swords, I figured like Twin Sword Marauder or something like that. Something that you know, is close enough and that is different that you could tell, because obviously there isn't a Knight of Twin Swords in actual Yu-Gi-Oh, but it's in Dungeon Dice Monsters. So the next one would be cards, and I figure recreating the Dungeon Dice cards, they were the same size as Yu-Gi-Oh cards, but they do have kind of shorter card art and a lot more space for card text and such. So what I figured I can do is kind of just print off the correct size of Dungeon Dice cards, because there's pretty much pictures of every single one available, and basically recreate it. And I do only have a black and white printer, which I figure is technically the more affordable option for people anyway. You could get them printed off in color and cover a Yu-Gi-Oh card. That's what I plan on doing, is just printing them off, Mod Podging them onto a Yu-Gi-Oh card. That way you can still have a Yu-Gi-Oh back, have them on the front. But since it is black and white, I figure I might have to replace some of the text with maybe just a cover box and add the text in there. But I think that works out for the Japanese cards if I do continue on, or items and stuff like that for the game. If I do continue on making some of them, they'll probably have to be translated anyway for their card effects and such. So I'd have to do that anyway. After the cards is the crest counter. Now, I don't have really anything to show it off, but I figure what I can do is just basically make a sectioned kind of cube with some, you know, bars going across of whatever, and just have beads or whatever to symbolize the 10 that you can move across on the crest counter for the 5 different symbols. I figure that won't be too hard to just kind of recreate. And lastly, the dungeon pieces, you know, when you summon a monster, the pieces that you lay out. I figure I can just also use this on maybe some foam board and get those pieces exact and find out what, you know, pieces need to be made and what for the set, and how like an advanced kind of set would be for 10 for each person playing. So some of that, like, that's some of the difficulties of finding out the exact placement of the summon and which way they face and such, and some of the rulings. There is an official rule that a rule book that you can still look up on like Mattel.com. Like, it's you literally Google it and it comes up from like Mattel. It's crazy. But I figure though that'll be some of the issues I have to face. Same with the dice, is just maybe figuring out which sides are correct for which and how much crests are on each dice and such. But I will have those in the future videos. I'll probably have a video for each of these things that I've listed off. And the 7 kind of monsters, I guess, for the set of an original starter set of Dungeon Dice monsters include Gearfried, you know, Vorse Raider, Thunderball, Strike Ninja, Buster Blader, and then the Knight of Twin Swords, like I mentioned, which is Twin Sword Marauder or whatever, in place. And then also the Monster Lord, so your main one, did also have a card too. So like I said, I can have that card, also have whatever to replace the Monster Lord, or if it's, you know, it's just me and my friends playing, we can just have whatever monster for that Monster Lord, you know, to represent. It's not like it's going anywhere. So that basically covers what I plan on doing in these future, you know, kind of DIY videos and some of the ideas I have on how to do it. Eventually, like I said, if people have enough interest and if I have enough maybe homies who want to play, make full 2 sets of, you know, the Dungeon Dice monsters, and then maybe expand with items and Japanese cards. And it's possible to maybe 3D print or get into the more technical, like making actual as legit version as you can that isn't, you know, as janky, but still, you know, looks pretty good. And of course, there is the advanced game and starter game. We're going to just keep it with the starter, build the starter set, and if homies are interested, have a 3v3 with the 6 monsters. I'd obviously make like 2 Monster Lords or whatever for representation of each side. And then, like I said, the items in the game or something else I'd like to touch upon, because they do have some kind of weird and wacky items. And if you've seen the rules, or if you want me to maybe make a video explaining Dungeon Dice monster rules, I can do that as well. And like I said, the link to how to make these, the figures, and the link to the dice should be in the description or in the comments. And like I said, I think a lot of things can be covered up with just dice, but I'll get to there in the future videos. Let me know if you do want to see continuation of this series. I do figure I'll finish it off and try and make a full Dungeon Dice Monster starter set at least, and then continue it from there if there's still interest. But I think it can come together. And learning the rules, you know, fully and playing Dungeon Dice Monsters and trying to make it affordable is basically the goal. So maybe, you know, multiple people can play it, or maybe get to the point where, you know, 3D printed, I can make the dice different colors or whatever to the perfect setting. Get there eventually. So if you have any suggestions or ideas for Dungeon Dice Monsters, or if you think there's anything I didn't cover and can cover in future videos for probably each separate piece, you know, making the dice and mat and figures and such, let me know if there's anything I missed. You know, make sure to check out my other DIY project videos. I do have dice towers and how to make shatterfoily like cards and ghost rare cards as well. Lots of different DIY Yu-Gi-Oh project, kind of trading card game project, you know, tabletop stuff. Like I said, make sure to check that all out. Otherwise, you know, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hit that little notification bell so you know when new content's coming out on the channel, because I do plan to continue this series pretty frequently until we get something complete. And otherwise, thanks for watching. Peace. What's good, YouTube, and welcome to another KaibaHacksDartz Yu-Gi-Oh video. We're here with the second entry in the Remaking Dungeon Dice Monster series. Now, in this video, we're going to be doing the dice. As you can see, we have levels 1 to 4 dice made up, with the correct sides, as far as I can tell, in the right orientations and right placement. So what you're going to need to make this dice, and of course there's a lot of ways to do it, but this is the way we've chosen, and feel free to leave different ways in the comments that I could maybe try out. But what you're going to need for this dice is some Mod Podge and tape, some other kind of glue, some sticky notes, and a pencil and or Sharpie. And then you're going to need something to cut and possibly maybe a ruler. So you're going to take some sticky notes, cut these into 4 equal pieces. So you're left with a square like this. And then you're going to use one of those squares and fold in 2 of the sides so it looks like that. And then fold them into the middle like I did there. Sorry, I could show it a little bit better. Then you're going to fold in 2 of the sides into the middle once again. So you're left with this little square, and that's going to be the face, one of the faces of your 6-sided die. And of course, I did show how to do this in the how to make a custom D6 video, but I'll show it off quickly again. It is a bit more thorough in this video. Link will be in the description and or the comments. But you're going to do that process 5 more times. And say if you wanted to make a red dice, you're going to need 6 red like this. So we've taken those three of those pieces and inserted them into each other. Basically what we've done here is take one, put the side tab in the middle, and you're going to do that again in one of these crevices. You're going to take that tab, put it in between one of the other tabs, but still not covering the face of the next one. And that's how you get that first basic shape right there. And then you're just going to keep adding them into the side. So once you're here, you can add one into there. We can maybe throw this blue one in for demonstrational purposes. But you'll get to that point, and then you can throw one into this slot right here. And then lastly, one into there. And you'll be left with a loose version of this. And basically what you'll want to do is take some Mod Podge, some glue, some kind of sealer, and just go over it. And as you're kind of holding it together and keeping it, and then maybe leave it to dry on something it won't stick to, but you'll be left with this solid cube. Now there is a couple different ways you could go about doing this. You could draw the sides on first and then kind of do the cube as you go around and kind of tape it, or lots of different ways to make these dice and different dice in general. But once it dries from the first kind of coating of Mod Podge, you'll be left with this. And then you can take the sides, and I'll usually go in pencil just to make sure I got like the shape and placement right. So for the yellow dice, the level 3, there is 2 summoning crests, and then an arrow and an arrow. And then as you can see, there is 2 of the, I believe it's the magic crests, or maybe I get the magic and the trap confused, but yeah. But as you can see, and then that would be your attack crest. I just drew that instead of, it's like 2 swords kind of clashing. And that would be your placement. As you can see, hopefully this kind of shows it off. But then, at least for the yellow one, I'll do it again later. You're going to take, I'll use a Sharpie pen, but you could probably just get away with a normal Sharpie. And you're just going to trace over your basic crests. So there we go. We have, that one side. And obviously I do it a little bit more thorough, but this is just a demonstrational dice. So, movement crest. You get the idea. We'll kind of skip there to save time. But then what I'll also do is take a Sharpie, or the Sharpie pen if you want, and just line the edges. So that way it does have that more of a dungeon dice appearance. I'd usually use a Sharpie for this part, but just to show off what it looks like, you'd go over and do some squares just to outline each crest. So something like that. And then if you go around each side, it does help make it pop a lot more. And you'll be left with something like this. And then lastly, what I do is take some of this tape, I don't know what you'd just call it other than invisible tape, but that comes out of these dispensers and is about that size. So you can basically wrap the dice on each of its axes. So you can go around that side, turn it, go around this side, you know, turn it, and then go around this side. So that way it wraps everything equally, and you're left with a pretty resilient and solid dice. Of course, you can Mod Podge under throughout this process, but this just keeps it even more sealed and helps make things, you know, stay in place, keeps it resilient. So that's basically how to make the Dungeon Dice Monster dice. Like I said, this part can be a little finagly, putting, you know, the pieces together with when you get the first three, and then you go into that, you know, the fourth, and possibly the fifth and the sixth. I'll see if I can possibly attempt it on camera here. In the D6 video, I do actually complete it, but you get the idea. Let me see if I can get her in there without finagling everything. I make it look a lot harder than it is, but that's just because I'm on camera and it's, you know. But you're basically lining all those up, and then you get that last one in the top there. Pretty self-explanatory. Like I said, I did do it in the D6 video to make this. And I can run through very quickly and show each of the crests in their positions just so people know where they're at. So this is the level 1 dice. All 4 sides are a level 1 summon with an arrow or a movement crest at the top. And then opposite to that is 2 defense crest. So that's the level 1. The level 2 is 2 movement. Then there's 2 summon crests and a 3rd summon crest. So movement, 3 summon crest. And then upwards from that movement, you can see, just so you can tell exactly the placement, 2 attack crest, and then spell or trap. I can never remember which one's which, to be honest. I'm assuming once I actually play some real games, it'll be a little bit more intuitive. But on this one, we have 2 summons, movement, and a movement. And you can see, position-wise, where the attack crest is. And then times 2 summon or spell or trap. Like I said, can't remember. I think it's, I'm going to say spell, but or maybe trap, I don't know. Excuse my bad artsiness, but that is a defense crest. 1 summon crest, 2 movement, an attack, and then as you can see, the speller trap, and then times 2 speller trap. So I'll just kind of give that a movement around just so you can see compared to what sides are what, because it did take me a little bit of research and close-upping people's videos to tell what's what. Hopefully this can make the process slightly easier for you and less time-consuming. And hopefully you can get the dice together easier than I have on camera. Because I struggle a lot, but when I'm not on camera, I can get them together pretty quick. As you can see, it's just the distance. It's a whole thing. But if you liked this, make sure to let me know in the comments if you have any other ideas for making the dice on the cheap. I know I could probably 3D print them or something like that, but I didn't want to pull that out just to begin. I want to show probably the cheapest way I can do. You could maybe do clay or start to get into epoxies and resins and maybe casting some special die for it, or maybe just squares that you can draw on whatever, or getting custom die possibly on, I know Amazon, I'm pretty sure, can sell different colors of like custom dice with no faces on them. So then you could apply your faces. Like I said, there's a lot of different ways to go about making the dice in Dungeon Dice Monsters. And hopefully this helps to simplify the process. And next we'll be moving into something else. I'm not sure what the next part will be exactly, but one of the 6 that I discussed in the first video. And let me know, like I said, how you feel about them. They work overall pretty good. You can roll them decently. You could try and find a way to add weight to them. Just maybe put like clay inside, or just keep adding more and more Mod Podge until it's a solid block. I don't know. Like I said, though, if you like that, make sure to leave a comment, or if you have any suggestions or thoughts on what I could do for remaking Dungeon Dice Monsters, not just the dice themselves. And make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Hit that little notification bell so you know when new videos of this series and other series are coming out on the channel. And otherwise, thanks for watching. Peace. What's good, YouTube, and welcome to another KaibaHacksDartz Yu-Gi-Oh video. And today we are back with our Dungeon Dice Monsters Remake, Remaster, Recreation series, and this is part 3, the figures, the miniatures, whatever you like to call them. And this is a pretty simple process, but I did go a little bit more in depth on how to make them a little bit more fancy in another video where it was just how to make D&D miniatures from Yu-Gi-Oh cards and such. I'll leave the link to that video in the description if you want to see some more kind of in-depth detail, but this will be how to make them more specifically for Dungeon Dice Monsters and the process. So we're going to take whatever card you want to make a miniature for, and this is going to be an extra copy of that card, and you're going to cut it out. You're just going to make sure you leave the border around the card art in place. I apologize if I go off camera. But just like that, you're just going to go around, make sure you leave that border. And of course, the more you take your time and such, the better it's going to turn out. But for demonstrational purposes, we'll kind of speed along, while still trying to maintain some of its essence here. So say, yeah, Karibo is a Dungeon Dice Monster, a Japanese one, so this will maybe come in handy in future episodes and such. But we do have the Karibo cut out now, so it's just the card art. Now, if you do want to, you can take a second one and cut it out and put it on the back in the same place and, you know, glue them together, Mod Podge or whatever, to keep them together. But I find one's fine. In the future, if I was to go real hard, or if I'm playing this a lot, you know, double side them up for convenience sake. Then you're going to take some foam board, cardboard, whatever, cut out a 1 inch by 1 inch square, and then put a line down the middle of it. Now you're basically going to cut with whatever box cutter or knife, not all the way through, but through one side's paper, or kind of at least the majority of one side, while trying to keep on your line there. This one's just for demonstrational purposes, obviously, so if I mess up, it's not that big of a deal. But you don't want to go through, you just kind of almost want to score it out and kind of get these edges here, because that's where it's going to hold you back a lot, and then you're just going to fold it in half. Now you can try and obviously get this as perfect as well, but it's not too big of a deal if it's not. And then you can tear off little excess pieces and whatever you want to kind of clean it up. Then you are going to take your Mod Podge and black paint, or if you want to get fancier with it, like I've maybe done with this Avion, which isn't a Dungeon Dice Monster, but obviously I've done a little bit of, you know, decoration up on there, like I've said. You can check out the other video for more kind of details on that if you'd like. But you're going to take this piece and Mod Podge with black, mix it up, cover it, you know, let it dry, and you're going to end up with this. Then you're also going to take a washer, maybe a nickel, and make it black as well. Now these are essentially your pieces to make your figure. You're going to take your cut piece here and kind of hot dog it out. And then you're going to take a glue gun, which we have ready to the side here, and put a line of glue, not too much, not too little. Let me see if I can actually get some to come out here. Ooh, that might be a little too much, but it's not that big of a deal, like I said. This is just kind of a demonstrational one. Could have kind of refilled my glue gun to make it a bit better. Kind of clean our hands up. Get the Karibo, line it up so it's in the middle, and stick it in. And then you're just going to close this around the base of it, so the card is basically down to the bottom of this, essentially, but still in place. So you can maybe push them over a little bit. And there you go. You do have your figure. Still got a string on them. We're ghosting them, but there you go. That's basically the figure. And then you're going to take your quarter or a nickel or whatever you're using, or a washer that you've painted as well, let dry. Put that to the side. Get some glue in the center base. And then apply it as well. Depending on your coins and such, obviously this could be magnetic. So or washers or whatever you use. So this could also be, you know, stuck onto something as well, or, you know, not magnetic, but, you know, will stick to a magnet. So that is basically it. We can kind of apply pressure, obviously, to even that out. And the top isn't too bad with the kind of excess that's come up. You can try and remove that. If not, not too big of a deal. But that is essentially your figure. And we've basically repeated that process for the starter set, like we've said. So we have our Vorse Raider, our Thunderball, our Gearfried, as well as our Buster Blader. Now this is where it gets a little tricky. We do have Arm Ninja instead of Strike Ninja right now, just because I don't have a Strike Ninja place of him. But I figure he works good enough with the card art, and we haven't, you know, necessarily finished the rest yet, so it's not that big of a deal. And for Knight of Twin Swords, since he isn't actually a Yu-Gi-Oh card, I figured I could maybe do a print off for him for card art. But if I do want to kind of keep it the same size and keep to similar ideas, and if we have to do it a lot, I figure we could just stick to similar things. So this is Twin Sword Marauder, which you could just use in place of Knight of Twin Swords, you know what I mean? For certain things, you can just kind of remember. You'd be like, okay, he's Twin Swords, Knight of Twin Swords, you know what I mean? So we do have our essential lineup. Like I said, this one does need to be replaced. He's kind of our proxy of a proxy for a miniature. But those are our main ones. And then for our Monster Lord, you could basically use anything, because obviously it's just representing you, because the Monster Lord is you, if you know it's good. So I've used a Dream Clown, and I just made a second one just as a, you know, default, just in case, you know, I don't have someone or one ready up for whoever may be playing with me. So the Dream Clown just kind of worked. I figured it also kind of looks like the Monster Lord a bit. He's kind of jestery, clowny, dunce cappy looking, so I figured that fits in. So those are our Monster Lords and our main set, or main starter set of 6. So we've officially recreated the figures, and of course the bases will fit. It's a 1 inch by 1 inch square into the place, but Dungeon Dice monsters do have circular bases, so you could always just cut them into circles instead and do the same process, put a line down the middle, fold them in half. I figured the square is good enough, and that way you can just kind of, you know, they're wider, they have a bit more of a stance to them. They're a bit heavier to replace, you know, what the figure would actually be. But like I said, if you want to see how to make it a little bit more detailed, or you're making it for something else maybe, check out my my D&D kind of miniature making video, Yu-Gi-Oh miniature video, sorry, where I explain it a bit more. And of course, if you did need to or want to, you can double it up and put one on the back, so you have double-sided. It's a little easier to know which ones you're using while you're playing, but I figure it's not too bad, and you're gonna know, especially with the starter set. So if there's any ideas you think I can use to improve this, let me know. And you know, if you liked it, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I think this works in terms of the figures. So we got the dice and the figures worked out pretty much 100%, at least finished. So that's 1/3 of the way. So let me know how you're liking this series so far, and if you have any ideas for some of the stuff we've done already to improve them, or future stuff, you know, like the dungeon pieces, and or, you know, the dungeon actual layout, the dungeon mat, you know, all that stuff, the crest counter, whatever. If you have any ideas for that stuff to make it on the cheap for the everyday person, like I said, these are basically nothing. You're just using foam board, a little bit of hot glue, you know, a nickel or a washer or whatever, and whatever card. So as long as it's not something too expensive, you can just use kind of your commons or whatever, as long as you're not going in on something that only had a limited print, you know, some King's Court stuff, hint hint. But other than that, like I said, let me know if there's anything else you want to see improved on these, other than maybe the double-sided. And you could always custom shatter foil them, like I've done in our one video, to make them a bit more shiny or whatever. But I've just kind of chosen, you know, like the Thunderball, it's, you know, Gearfried. They have the rarityness to be that looking shiny. Like I said, though, other than that, make sure to check out my other content where I'm doing more of these videos, one every couple days, hopefully. as well as other stuff, deck profiles, deck updates, card openings, all that kind of stuff, other Yu-Gi-Oh! DIY projects, future stuff coming, as well as just the rest of the Dungeon Dice Monster series. So like I said, make sure to do all that fun stuff, like, comment, share, and subscribe, hit that little notification bell, and otherwise, thanks for watching. Peace. What's good, YouTube, and welcome to another KaibaHacksDartz Yu-Gi-Oh! Video. Today we're coming back with part 4 of our Recreating Dungeon Dice Monster series, and this will be the cards for Dungeon Dice Monsters. Now, this one is pretty simple, and can be done a couple different ways. How we've chose to do it is just resize pictures of, Dungeon Dice Monster cards, and added text to replace whatever we needed to that may have been too small to get it to print clearly, or, whatever. And of course you could do this in color, but of course I just did it in black and white because it's cheaper. But we got this to the correct size. We do have black borders here that we cut out. This is just to space it over because my printer doesn't print right to the edges. Then you're also going to need some Mod Podge and a card, and then possibly a sleeve as well. Now another way you could do this is to just get out a square of paper, write out what you need to, either the full size, remake kind of a proxy, which I may do a video on in the future, how to make like a decent proxy of just a normal Yu-Gi-Oh card or kind of Dungeon Dice without a printer, but, or with. But this is basically, you just cut it out, but you could cut out this little square and just write in your own text and replace it over whatever card with the information you need, its health and such, attack. But we'll cut this one out. Just following our lines here that we've made on the printer. I basically just went on Canva, free kind of, graphic design website. Got the size correct of how big I wanted it to be, and then with the borders of the, the printer. And then that way I can just drop in the picture, kind of resize it to what it needs to be, and then it's good to go. Just print it off and it's the right size and to the edges here. And then of course just add text if need be, but you're cutting that out. And then of course this is a little flimsy, so all we do is take some Mod Podge or any kind of glue you could probably use, and then a card that we don't really care about, another use for your your commons you don't really care about too much. And we're just going to apply the Mod Podge all across the front of the card. Now you want to try and spread it out as much as possible if you're trying to get it kind of flat. You can use like kind of a scraper tool to help with that process, but it's not too big of a deal if it kind of gets a little wonked up. And then you're just going to take your proxied Dungeon Dice Monster piece of paper, I guess you call it, and apply it over. Line it up as well as possible so that you're covering the edges. Obviously, if you don't go all the way, the little bit of the card will cover it. Or if you have some excess, you can always trim it off after. Now, I find it's not too big of a deal if it gets on the back. And what you could also do is print off a kind of Dungeon Dice Monster like backing and put it on the back of the card as well if you really wanted to. But what I'll usually do is let this kind of sit for a second. Make sure you can get as many of those kind of pockets out, any air bubbles, so it's attached as much. And then we'll get a bit more Mod Podge. And if you do kind of care about it kind of looking a little messy on the back, then you don't really need to do this step. But this is just to kind of secure it more. What I'll kind of do is go around the edges and just kind of get in between. That way it just kind of stays on there a bit more. Obviously you can spread this out as you go. But we'll just kind of go around for a quick demonstrational purpose here. Like I said, I don't really care about too much about the back, especially if they're just going to be in sleeves anyway. And there's not really much of a point of taking them out unless you're, you're making different decks and such, really getting into it. But I just go around those edges. All along. And then you can use your fingers to clean it up or whatever. And then we're just going to kind of layer across to get it off. We're also going to cover the front. And like I said, if you're going to do the back too with a Dungeon Dice Monster, logo or whatever, you could do that as well. But I go pretty liberally with the covering. That way, it's water resistant. And it kind of can add a bit of shine to it depending on, gloss or matte, Mod Podge, depending on what you use, see the different sealers and such. Let's see if we can just kind of pry it off here. It's going to be a little stuck. And then just set it right there. And then, you let it dry. And obviously, you can pop it into a sleeve to further protect it. Just going to kind of wipe my hands off here and I'll show you what we do have for the starter set. So far, we obviously got the Vorse Raider, the Gearfried, Knight of Twin Swords, Strike Ninja, Buster Blader, Thunderball, and then for the Monster Lords, you could print out, the normal one or the Japanese one, one of each here. Obviously, you'll need a second one of probably just a normal Monster Lord, but I just printed out the base, 6 plus a Monster Lord and the Japanese one. And, I didn't really need to replace the crests, but obviously all this info you could do, and like I said, you could proxy out the whole thing yourself just using a Vorse Raider, and then just put the info below him, or, you could do different tech and just kind of just do a whole card and write it out yourself. Lots of different ways to proxy them and get them as close to actual Dungeon Dice Monster cards as possible, still keeping them thick and usable, retaining some structure, and then, you can make some decks out of them. So, your orange cards, that's your Warrior Dungeon Dice Monster deck, or your whatever. So you can start to organize them and do different stuff for more deck building processes. I figured it's a good little starter set. If you have any ideas to, improve this, or, either make it cheaper, or generally improve it, in more of a costly way, I know you can buy kind of proxy cards. You could maybe get them printed off, maybe at like a Staples or something like that. But this works pretty well. Obviously, it's still wet there, so it's a little shiny, and it'll all kind of clear up. And, you can do different stuff. You could maybe just take a highlighter and highlight in certain aspects, or leave certain things white to be colored in later, or kind of go over it with some light coloring with a highlighter or something. There's lots of different little customizable ways to improve them or to make them, different stuff. You could make all your warriors yellow, and all your your beasts green, and your invincible monsters purple, whatever you want, just so they're easier to distinguish, or maybe tell what's what. Like I said, if you have any ideas or anything you think I missed, let me know in the comments. If you haven't checked out the other parts in the series, I have done the dice and the figures so far, so that does leave the crest pool, the dungeon tiles, and the dungeon map. So we're halfway to recreating Dungeon Dice Monsters for almost nothing. Like I said, these can be easily recreated with just a piece of paper and gluing it onto a normal card and just writing out your own stuff. I figured this makes it a little bit more legit, and the closer you get, the better it kind of looks for video and just for playing in real life. So like I said, make sure to check out the other videos in the series. The first one's just kind of going through how the different steps will happen. Second, I believe, is the dice, and then the figures. And then now we are up to the cards. And I'm not sure which one will be next, but like I said, one of the three, the crest pool, the dungeon tiles, or the dungeon mat. Other than that, I do other Yu-Gi-Oh! DIY projects. Dice towers, dice pools, or whatever you call them, kind of, where you dice trays, I guess. Different stuff like that, different Yu-Gi-Oh! Projects, how to make custom shatter foils, stuff like that. You could even make these into shatter foils possibly as well. How to make custom ghost rares, stuff like that. Different Yu-Gi-Oh! DIY projects. So I recommend you check out the full playlist, which I'll probably also have a link to, as well as the other videos in the series so far, probably in the description or in the comments. And so far, I think it's coming together. And like I said, let me know if there's anything you think I missed. And I think that pretty much wraps it up. Make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you like the video. make sure to hit that little notification bell so you know when new videos in the series or just channel content is coming out in general. And, you know, like I said, make sure to check out my other videos. And otherwise, thanks for watching. Peace. What's good, YouTube, and welcome to another KaibaHacksDartz Yu-Gi-Oh video. Today, we're back with the Dungeon Dice Monsters remake series. I believe this is part 5, and this will be the dungeon tiles. You know, the dungeon pieces where you summon your monsters. You know, I guess in the show, it's kind of how the dice unfold, but you know, in the actual, you know, in at least the English game, it's just pieces. So, some of the stuff you're gonna need. What I've used at least is gridded paper. As you can see, there is inch-by-inch squares. That's the actual size, which is the same size of actual, you know, Dungeon Dice Monster squares. So what we've basically done with this is we just take a sheet, and we've drawn up some of them here using what I use is just a Sharpie pen, just to try and make it as permanent as possible. You could alternatively just kind of draw these out yourself, you know, get them the right size using just a ruler. But I just, you know, take a ruler and draw them out real quick on this. I find it just makes it a little bit easier for getting everything correct. Plus, I plan to also use this possibly for the actual dungeon map itself, the game board. So these are just some of the examples. And for each one, you'd have to do 2 sides if you're doing kind of a starter set, because the starter set pieces were double-sided. You know, you'd have the red and the blue for starter set games, and, you know, I guess so you could choose your color when you're doing a 10v10. But, of course, with this, you can customize them, make them whatever color, or if, you know, you're just making a 10, like the 10 actual set, you could just do one side, and then cut it, or put it onto some poster board like we do anyway. But, just do the one side and color it in the back. You can do black or whatever you want. That way, making it, I'd say to definitely do, if you're going to be doing this to do 10v10 games, do it that way, because it makes it a little less confusing with things. But for doing a starter set kind of thing, we do have 2 sides. And what we do is cut one of those out. So we've done the T, and just put it on a piece of foam board. You could also use cardboard, cardstock, anything you really want, you know, to have it slightly permanent. We've just Mod Podged it on there. You could use glue or whatever. And then kind of went over it with some Mod Podge to give it a bit of a cover. But then what you're also going to do is just cut out this off the foam board. And this doesn't have to be too exact. And I haven't let this dry super well. You can do that, obviously. This I just let sit for a few minutes after Mod Podging it, just for, you know, saving time on the video. But you're going to cut it out, obviously following your lines here as closely as possible. But you can always go over with a denser Sharpie, or just again with your Sharpie pen, if you happen to cut into them, or if you just want to make them a bit thicker, or, you know, adjust them in whatever way, make them a bit straighter. See, we kind of cut those edges, and then we can cut into the actual sides here. And it may kind of pop off just from the Mod Podge not being 100% dry there, but if it was dry, it would be stuck on. Plus, sometimes the foam board can kind of get split on the sides. So you can just kind of go over it with some more Mod Podge. That's what I'd do anyway, if it does kind of separate off of there. But you'd have that shape lined up there. Obviously, it'd be attached a bit better. Mine's kind of peeling off from lack of dryness. But you'd have that attached. You'd take your other side and attach it to the other side, Mod Podge it on, whatever. And then you could also use clear tape and just kind of wrap them up. And before this process and or after is when you could color them in, like I said. You know, you just do this side green. So we'll just say, for demonstrational purposes real quick, just a little bit of green. We'd fill that in, obviously. But that'd be the one side. And then you'd flip it over and do black or, you know, whatever. But for obviously the starter set, we would keep it red, and blue. So that basically covers, you know, the easy, cheap way to do it. And then through all that process, you know, the rulers and the paper, we've come out with our 10 Dungeon Dice Monster pieces. And like I said, these are double-sided, which does add a bit of confusion for when you're trying to set them up. So I do, like I said, do recommend if you're doing 10v10 games to split the colors. Even starter set, you could split them. But I'll show the different pieces with the summoning crests up, just to make it easy if you are recreating them. So that would be your 10 pieces for, you know, say, for one player. So you'd have 2 crosses, 2 T's, and then you have the 2 zigzags going in opposite directions, the summoning crests there. And then you have the kind of Z's here. Oh, I guess this one, sorry, that one would be that way. And then you also have this piece. I don't know if they actually have specific names, but this piece here. So basically you have the crosses and the T's are the same, but then these are just mirrored images of each other. And it's the same for blue. A little harder to see the summoning crests. I do recommend you go with a brighter Sharpie or something thicker, but it gets the job done. It's a little easier to see in real life than it is on camera. But we've made our 10 dungeon tiles, and like I said, it's pretty simple, especially without the grid paper, and I basically just got that to make it a little bit quicker and easier on myself, getting, you know, without having to measure. I can just kind of draw out the pieces. So I do recommend that if possible. You know, you can get it at Amazon and craft stores and stuff for pretty cheap, possibly even the dollar store. So do look around for that. And then also I plan on, you know, upgrading this. Like I said, there's many different ways you could do this. Maybe with a 3D printer. I do have one, so in the future could make some of these. I could just plan on, the plan basically would be making one square, you know, get the whatever texture I want on it, and then add a star to it for the summoning ones, and then you can just use those squares, say in like Tinkercad, and attach them and make them into the right shapes. So I figure that would be pretty easy, and once I do that, I'd probably just make the files so everyone can use them. I'll see what I do with that at that point, but this is an easy alternative. They're pretty durable. Like I said, water resistant once you coat them in Mod Podge. Pretty sturdy. You could always, like I said, clear tape them. That way they're just a little bit more resilient. Oh, you could probably bend them around a bit more. Obviously these are stiff, but you know, like I said, they work good. Let me know if there's any upgrades you think I could make just to these, you know, to help along the process, or any ideas for the future to recreate Dungeon Dice Monsters. Of course, we still have the dungeon map and the crest pool, crest counter, whatever you like to call it, to do in part 6 and 7. So we'll get to those, like I said, and if you haven't seen the previous videos where we take care of the rest of the stuff, you know, the figures, the cards, or I guess the miniatures, whatever you like to call them, and then the dice, and, you know, the different pieces that go into Dungeon Dice Monsters, we're going to get it all done as cheap as possible, and hopefully we can have more players and more people in the community playing, and, you know, it won't be so expensive or hard to find some of these pieces. Well, obviously, but it is to find them legitimately, but that way you can play with them the same way you would if you did have those pieces. And these work pretty well. They're not super perfect on how they line up sometimes. They can be just a little bit off, but they fit together pretty nicely. And on the game mat that we're kind of testing out, it seems to work pretty well. Like I said, let me know what else you think I could do to improve them. Check out those other videos. You know, make sure to check out my other content in general. I do have a Duke Devlin kind of Dungeon Dice Monsters deck profile for Yu-Gi-Oh! Because there is some of those cards in actual Yu-Gi-Oh! Where you're rolling dice for their effects and such. Pretty sweet deck. I recommend you check out that deck profile. But I will leave the rest of the videos linked in the description for the other parts in the series. And possibly in the comments, I'll have maybe the Yu-Gi-Oh! DIY playlist or something linked. But like I said, make sure to check out my other stuff. Make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. stay tuned for the rest of the videos in the series. We'll probably have some kind of bonus episodes going over like items and some of the other monsters and, you know, like the Japanese cards and stuff. And whatever else you maybe want to see in the future, and some certain upgrades to some of the pieces we have made. So like I said, you know, make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, hit that little notification bell so you know when that stuff's coming out. And otherwise, thanks for watching. Peace. What's good, YouTube, and welcome back to another KaibaHacksDartz Yu-Gi-Oh video. Today, we're back at it again with our Recreating Dungeon Dice Monster series, and this is part 6, the Dungeon Mat, the Dungeon Map, whatever you like to call it. And if this is your first video, or if you're not subscribed to the channel, I recommend you subscribe. We're going to be doing a lot more with the Dungeon Dice, especially with our recreated stuff here. And of course, we also do different Yu-Gi-Oh videos as well, deck profiles, deck updates, deck lists, all that stuff. So like I said, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Helps out the channel huge. So this is actually pretty easy if you have the gridded paper, and if not, it's still pretty easy. I've used this for the dungeon tiles as well video. And if you do have this, all you need to do is clean up some of the edges so that you can attach them to make a 13 by 19 grid. And that's the size of an actual dungeon dice mat. So like I said, all I did was remove the pages and clean them up on the sides so that they're right to the actual edges, because you can see some of them kind of go in between an inch. And then attach them using 4 to get your dungeon dice mat. And I just use clear tape, which I recommend. In the end, you could go over and completely clear tape, kind of laminate it yourself with clear tape, or just kind of leave it bare. You can Mod Podge it. There's a lot of different options for what you can do to obviously customize it yourself. And if you don't have the grid paper, you can just try and find a big like kind of poster board sheet, something like that, or a couple of just sheets of paper, and cut it out so it is 13 by 19 inches, because that's how big it is. Now, if you want, you can add an extra inch on each side, like I've done for this one, to just have kind of a border, and you can color that in, or, you know, maybe put the crests there, so you could put a dice on them to represent how much crests you have in that pool. That's kind of a simple way to make crest counters. A crest counter, I guess. But like I said, 13 by 19 sheet is what you're going to need. And then if you don't have the gridded paper, you can just go along every inch and put a line, and then do the same, you know, horizontally. So that way you have the 13 by 19 full grid. Now, you're going to want to go 6 spaces in on each side into the middle, and that's where you're going to have your monster lord. You're going to do that on both sides, 6 squares in. And then, of course, if you want to have, let me pull this out, the starter zone area, it is 4 squares in from the sides, or from the, you know, the long way, and 1 square in on each side for the short way. So 4 squares on each side here, 8, and 1 on each side. I don't know the exact, I guess it'd be, I think, 11. 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So it's an 11 by 11 square in the middle of the rectangle for your starting area. And as you can see, I just kind of colored those the same way they are in the original Dungeon Dice Monsters mat, you know, gray and gold. And then, like I said, you can add a border to the excess if need be to, you know, give you a little bit more room to work with or kind of lay out. And you could always color it in. For this one, I just did Mod Podge on it. Mod Podge the entire thing up, and it looks not too bad. Now, if you wanted to take it a step further, you can take a plain mat, an actual rubber, you know, white mat, and you can do the same process on it. And all I did was cut the 13 by 19 shape out. You don't even need the gridded paper for that. And then you can just place it and line it up so it's in the middle. And then I went around it with a Sharpie and just went and did the lines in between, and like I said, added the colors. And of course you could do all this stuff in whatever colors you'd like. I just kind of went and kept it kind of blank, but you can always fill in these squares as well with whatever color. I just figured it'd be a little time consuming, and I don't really care too much. But then this way you actually have a permanent mat. And it's not too bad. You can get these on Amazon for the specific purpose of making custom mats. But this is for Dungeon Dice. And then, of course, you have a decent little extra area over here where you could either put, 10 of the crest symbols and just have one kind of counter that you move across them. Or you could just have, one image each of the crest symbols and just have like 1 or 2 dice that you keep on top of it and rotate for how many crests you have in lieu of a crest counter. So there is a lot of ways to do that. What I did see some people in like the Dungeon Dice Monsters Reddit, they had like cards with the crest symbols on them that you could just put dice on to count your crests. So there's a lot of way to do the crest counter. Of course, we're going to try and, for the last part, the 7th, or at least in the main kind of line, we're going to recreate the crest counter itself, which I've already kind of done, but I'll show it off in the video, obviously, and the process. But like I said, this is like the kind of extended alternative. You can buy some mats online that can get a little more expensive, but this probably took half an hour of work, plus this, I think it was maybe $15 mat. So, and then it comes out pretty well, and of course you could write Dungeon Dice Monsters, your logos or whatever, KaibaHacksDartz, stuff like that. And of course it can go in a tube. If you do make this one a little bit shorter, it can go in a tube, because this happens to be just a little bit shorter. It doesn't have the inch on each side. It probably has like half an inch, maybe a centimeter. As you can see, that's like the border right there. Maybe a centimeter. And that's about on each side, probably maybe a little less. And then not too sure on how much. I think it was like 6 centimeters, or maybe I forget exactly how big that was. No, that can't be 6. But you know what I'm saying? You can kind of figure it out. I just lined this template of the 13 by 19 up. As you can see, there's just an inch around on the black border, and then put it on there. But you could also get the gridded paper, which is it can be a cheap alternative. I found mine for, I think, $5 or $8 or something like that, for like 50 sheets. And then you can do what I did, especially for making the, like the dungeon tiles. But like I said, this works pretty well. And now we have an official kind of Dungeon Dice Monsters mat that I can put in a tube, carry with me. And these can just be kind of prototypes / templates for future stuff, just for quick reference of where to put things. It does definitely help to have something to look at. And of course, if you have any ideas to help, upgrade this, make this a bit better, like I said, you can always laminate it with tape. I figure that it's just, it can get a little bit difficult. It'd be a bit time consuming. And just to show off, I just kind of used a big brush, went across with Mod Podge. Keeps it protected enough. There is tape around kind of the edges on the bottom and stuff, but like I said, if you have any ideas to improve this, let me know. Of course, this is just the cheaper version, and I did show off kind of how to do this. I can do a full video in the future on how I went through making this, if you want, as well as, I'll do upgrades on the other stuff as I can kind of come across them, like with a 3D printer and other objects and such, and different ways of maybe using crest counters and different ideas like that. So like I said, let me know in the comments how you like it. Of course, links in the description to the rest of the Dungeon Dice Monster series, recreating. And of course, links to other stuff like the KaibaHacksDartz Discord, where there's lots of discussions about, Dungeon Dice Monsters, Yu-Gi-Oh! In general, different formats, stuff like that. So make sure to check that out. And like I said, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Lots more coming in the series, and eventually some Dungeon Dice Monster duels, I guess you call them, or dice duels. Don't know what the official name is, but we'll have some of those coming soon, starter set and full 10v10s. So look forward to that. Like I said, like, comment, share, subscribe. Hit that little notification bell so you know when future videos are coming. And otherwise, thanks for watching. Peace. What's good, YouTube, and welcome to another KaibaHacksDartz Yu-Gi-Oh! Video. Today, we're back with our Remaking Dungeon Dice Monster series. This is part 7, the crest counter. We have completed every other piece of the Dungeon Dice Monsters, at least starter set, up to this point, and showed off how to make every piece for, cheap and affordable, and it doesn't take too much time. Of course, there's many ways to do it, but this is the way we're kind of running it right now, and we're planning on more videos in the future. but this is what you'll need for the crest counter itself. So you're going to need some bamboo skewers. These are going to be kind of what you're moving the beads along, which is what we have here for our, you know, crest counter, or to count them up. And then also a pen and a pencil, some whiteboard or cardboard, or not whiteboard, poster board, sorry. A ruler, scissors, a carton, or you can possibly kind of remake what we're using the carton for. I find this is just a easy way to do it. It kind of has the shape we need already. And then a hot glue gun as well, which I have to the side. And of course, you're going to take some of the bamboo skewers, and these are going to be what we, like I said, slide the beads across. But first, we'll start with our carton, and you're going to want to go about 3 centimeters up and mark that off. We already have a little bit higher than 3 centimeters marked there. And you're going to take that line around the entire base of your carton. And of course, it can be a little higher, a little lower, because this is just going to basically be the square of our crest counter. Kind of hard to explain without getting it done here, but we'll quickly mark this off. We just go around the edges. It doesn't have to be super perfect. You can kind of fix it with cuts as you go. But as you can see, we have that bottom line kind of marked. And we'll just cut into it with our scissors. And of course, you want to have this cleaned and dried out. You don't want it to be smelling of milk or have, you know, like dried milk in there. Rotting milk. So just cut it along that line. And we're left with the base that we're going to use. Now, essentially, this is where our crest counter will go. We're going to take skewers, and I have an approximate length that I've used here. We'll say about maybe 4.5 inches or 11-ish centimeters. And you're going to take this and mark 5 kind of dots on the side, like we've done with this one, and poke those through. Obviously, kind of keep them in the middle of height, and then equally space them. And then using a skewer, you can push through the one hole you've made. I just kind of mark them, use a pen or a pencil to make the little beginning hole, then push the pointed end of a skewer. You can use one of the cutoffs. Basically push through the hole on one side you've made, and you can use this to slowly line up the other holes on the other side, just by kind of pushing it into that side. It'll leave a little bit of an indentation, so you can line it up straight, and then you can poke through the other side, and you're going to do that 5 times, so you got those 5 holes on each side. Then you're going to take your skewers, and we'll probably only do one of these just to show it off. We could do it in the middle here, so it's a little bit easier to see. You're going to take one of your skewers, and then you're going to get 10 beads. So we got 5 there, and 5 more to the side here. And you're going to put all those beads onto your skewer. Of course, you can have a max of 10 on a crest counter. So we're going to put the 10. Now, depending on the hole in the beads, they might be a bit more stiff, or the size of your skewer. So you might have to sand it down or kind of work them out. But essentially, you have what your crest counter is going to be. Now, it doesn't leave a super massive amount of room, so what you could always do is do 2 colors, kind of going back and forth. So you can tell a little bit easier. You could go blue, white, blue, white, blue, white, or whatever. But we'll just stick to blue on this one. And then you're going to want to leave a little bit of a nub sticking out, not too much on one side. And that's when you're going to take your hot glue gun, and you're just going to go around that nub. Of course, try not to fill in any of the other holes. You're just basically going to want to surround the skewer that you got there. So let that kind of sit. Make sure you don't move it around. And of course, it doesn't have to be super perfect. The line going through, you can have them be off a bit, but as long as you have enough clearance for each one to move, and along with the edges too, if you get too close to the top or bottom, you might not have that clearance for the beads to move. But you have a little bit of excess here on the one side, and that's where, once you're done all 5, you can hot glue this on and draw on your crest symbols. So we'll kind of wipe this off to make sure it doesn't drip down. Set that to the side. Basically, what you're going to end up with is something like this. And of course, you can go around the edges, or if you do choose to use like cardboard or poster board or whatever, you can just recreate this and kind of just use it as a stencil shape and just make each wall and connect it all with tape or whatever, or glue it together and remake your own so it's a little bit longer, or whatever size you need be, with depending on your beads and skewers. For this one, I had just matchsticks, long barbecue kind of matches, so they're a little bit thicker and the beads can get a little bit stuck sometimes. So it depends on what you want. If you do want them to kind of be a little bit more stiff, then you can have maybe matchsticks or whatever. So that way they're not as loose. As you can see, those bottom ones are. The top ones require a little bit of movement, not much. But maybe that's how you want it, so it's less hard to lose track of what you have. But of course, there's lots of ways to count your crests. You could just have a card with the symbol and dice on top of it, as long as you don't go over 10. But I find this way is a nice simple way to do it. And of course, this is just kind of the prototype-y version. You could color it, like I said, make it out of cardboard or poster board, at least the box, and color it whatever colors you want, black, you know, whatever. But it does work. As you can see, we got the 10, and we have enough space to move the crest counters and count like we need to. So it's pretty efficient. You know, it's small, doesn't require a lot of space, and it's not too hard to build. As you see, I put together, you know, 1/5 of it here in a very small amount of time. And of course, when you're attaching this piece, all I did is, when I had all 5 through, was put a bunch of glue connecting it on the back and just kind of on the seams here like I did on this side. And then you can, if you have excess, say like there's maybe a little bit here, you could always trim it down so that it's a little smoother. You could always trim down this side too. I just kind of left it so you can see what I did there. If you have any, you know, ideas to improve this design, or, you know, make it cheaper or make it more accessible to people, of course, let me know in the comments. Make sure to check out the rest of the series. Of course, the link will be in the description. We've kind of covered every piece of the Dungeon Dice Monster, at least kind of starter set. So we'll probably have one video where we kind of show it all off together and show the total progress. But of course, there will be future updates where we're maybe 3D printing some of the aspects and other stuff like that. You know, different improvements, maybe different ideas that people give us in the comments. So like I said, open to ideas. Make sure to leave a comment if you have any. And like I said, if there's any improvements, let me know as well. I think overall it works for the design purpose, and it looks pretty good, even with this kind of prototype-y version. You could even take like tape and just go around the edges or whatever you want. You could take Yu-Gi-Oh cards, commons. You know, there's lots of different ways to recreate these pieces, and the more we kind of make it accessible, the more people can play. And who knows, if we build up enough interest, maybe Konami will re-release some Dungeon Dice Monsters. Who knows? So like I said, make sure to check out the other videos. Make sure to check out my other content in general, you know, deck profiles, Yu-Gi-Oh content of all different kinds, you know, different DIY projects other than Dungeon Dice Monsters. So make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hit that little notification bell so you know when future videos are coming out. And like I said, keep an eye out for that, probably that part 8 where we show off everything we've had come together so far, and hopefully some future Dungeon Dice Monster duels in the future as well. So like I said, thanks for watching. Make sure to check out that other content, and peace. What's good, YouTube, and welcome to another KaibaHacksDartz Yu-Gi-Oh video. This is part 8 in our Remaking Dungeon Dice Monster series. I figured we'd kind of come back and look at something I had mentioned in one of the previous videos, and that is the items. Now, we'll start just by looking at the items that I believe are in the game. I think there is only 5. If I'm wrong, please correct me. As far as from the research of at least the physical card game, the items are pretty slim and are kind of wacky. So we'll kind of go through them and look at them. We got the Gluminizer. This one's probably my favorite, but the wackiest. And it is a level 2 item. When this item is dimensioned, activated immediately. And for the rest of this game, all monsters in the dungeon require twice as many movement crests to move. So that can affect the flying monsters too. You know, it's going to be kind of wacky if you threw this down. If you want longer games, this is kind of what you hit. Now, I'm not sure how it works in terms of stacking, because if both you and your opponent had one, I don't know the rulings on that. So feel free to let me know. I'm not 100%. Also, if you want to know how to make the cards like I've shown, it was in one of our previous Dungeon Dice Monster remaking videos. Link in the description to the playlist, so you can see how we made these. The Medical Aid Kit, level 2. When a monster passes through this, the monster's controller may remove 2 damage markers, 20 points of damage from their monster, and the item is destroyed. So it's just a little quick healer. Like I said, a lot of these are kind of inherently not too useful. Like we got Trap Bandit here, which I love his art, but go ahead and check that out, like the actual art colored, because it looks a lot wackier. You can see he is kind of weird. It's a level 1 trap. When a monster passes through this item, 1 trap crest is destroyed from the crest counter of the monster's controller, and the item's destroyed. So it just destroys 1 trap crest, you know what I mean? It's kind of inherently useless, and it could be filled with something else, but I figured get all 5 items done because it's just easy, and then I can kind of work through some other stuff like all warriors, or maybe all level 1s, or whatever area I decide to take through in trying to maybe make every single Dungeon Dice Monster card and piece once again. We got the Energy Disc. When a monster passes through this item, the monster must stop on the item for that turn, and the monster gains 20 extra attack power points permanently, and the item is destroyed. This one's kind of cool. Like I said, inherently you could probably have another monster that could do something similar or just boost attack temporarily. It's kind of, it could be useful. And then we got the Exploding Disc, level 3. When a monster passes through this item, it receives 2 damage markers, 20 points of damage, and the item's destroyed. So, those are the items, as far as I believe, the only 5 items in the actual physical Dungeon Dice Monster game. Now we'll talk about what we use to represent them. And if you haven't seen how to make these figurines for the game, minifigs, whatever you want to call them, I do have another video, like I said, Remaking Dungeon Dice Monster playlist, link in the description. And you can use a lot of different things for these. The card art can be very vast. You could even draw your own card art if you really wanted to, of just a treasure chest or something. But I figure, since we have the ability to customize a bit more, we might as well switch it up. So I figure you could have a couple of these if you're going to use items for maybe yours. And then if you have maybe a second set for someone else to play, you could make it something else, like, you know, Dark Mimics, level 1, level 3 Dark Mimic, you know, maybe a gold sarcophagus. You know, there's a lot of ways you could take it, get creative with just whatever thing you use to represent your item on the board. Obviously, you could kind of have different ones, but I figure since they don't really know what the item is until they hit it, you know, it's going to be face down, you just know an item's there. You're not going to be representing it with the same one, because then next game they know, okay, if you only have one mimicking, man-eating treasure chest, sorry, he's, you know, this card. So you'd probably want to have a couple if you are running a couple different traps in your deck, which, like I said, I don't know if is the best inherently, or items, I guess, not traps. But, overall, like I said, I think this encompasses pretty well what you need for them, because, like I said, I think it was just good to run through the 5 traps. Like I said, if there is more, let me know. Make sure to check out the other videos in the playlist, but we do have a little bonus. I have seen that we could maybe start coloring in some of the cards. Depending on different stuff, I would maybe do something different. What I've done is just used highlighter for this one, but I'm trying out different stuff. We probably have a future video on how well it works. But I figure either coloring in a certain area or marking it, you know, you could do different things. If you do have a black and white one, I recommend going the cheaper way and just making them black and white. But what you could do is do what I've done, do the border on this one, just as an example. Or you could just have a little square in the corner that's blue. When you're making say if you're making the custom area like I did, you could just have a little square in there. But what I've done is to preferably have them represented by their color like the Japanese ones are. So maybe have warriors all be blue, and all your traps you could maybe leave black, since there's so little of them. And then, you know, your dragons, make them whatever color, green or red, or I think beasts are green. But, you know, stuff like that, you could make it as close to the color as actual Dungeon Dice Monster cards, or make your own custom stuff, but, you know, keep them all in the same area, so that way you can tell. You could also maybe just have two squares, one that just, you know, if it's this color, you know, it's level, this one, you know, it's type, you know what I mean? Even though it says it on the card, it's just a quick, oh, okay, green, he's, bam, level 2 or something, you know? You can represent different things with little bits of color. You don't have to fully color in the card, but I figured this was just an example to show off. Otherwise, like I said in the last video that we were going to do in this video, we will have a video encompassing, showing off everything we've kind of done, so then you can go back and look through the videos on how we made it, and then hopefully some actual Dungeon Dice duels. But so far, we're just working out the little kinks, making sure we got everything perfect, and trying to get 2 full starter sets, plus maybe some more, so we can do some other content and stuff like that. But there's lots of ideas coming in the future, and if you have any ideas to change different stuff in the playlist, you know, different better upgrades, let me know. And of course, we do want to take it to the next step and start maybe 3D printing some of the stuff, like dice and dungeon tiles, maybe the bases for the minifigs and such. Who knows where we can go with it. Lots of ways to upgrade it. So like I said, make sure to check out the other videos in the Dungeon Dice Monsters playlist, link in the description, as well as the link to our Discord, the KaibaHacksDartz Discord with the boys. You know, you can check that out. Lots of different discussions going on there about Yu-Gi-Oh!, you know, Dungeon Dice Monsters, remote duels, stuff like that. So, like I said, make sure to check it out. Otherwise, check out my other content, Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profiles. We did do a Dungeon Dice Monsters Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck, because there is some crossover there. So make sure to check that out as well. And otherwise, thanks for watching. Peace. What's good, YouTube, and welcome to another KaibaHacksDartz Yu-Gi-Oh! Video. Today, we're coming at you with part 9 of our Remaking Dungeon Dice Monsters series. And this is just kind of the finishing lap of the mainline kind of series. We're just going to run through and show off the kit, basically, what we've assembled. And this is just a good point for people to kind of reference and see at the end. And you can see what we've, obviously go back into the description, and we have the playlist for the entire Remaking Dungeon Dice Monster series, and you can see how we got here. But this is the kind of kit that I've assembled here. We'll kind of move it back. Starting with our crest counters. Here, you can see they're not the fanciest thing. We talked about in the video how you could kind of customize these up to make them a little bit more, you know, camera-friendly, or just, you know, player-friendly, a little bit nicer looking. But they get the job done. It's got the 10, you know, crest beads on there, I guess you'd call crest counter beads to move across. They work pretty consistently, and they're not too bad. We've made a couple of these up as tester ones, and they're pretty cheap to build. You know, I think this was one of even the cheaper things of the build. And of course, you know, Dungeon Dice Monster stuff can run you up pretty well. Some of the stuff we have in the kit, we have videos on how to make, like, the deck box. I will have a future video on how to make a, I guess you call them like a case for your play mat. But we do have the Dungeon Dice Monster play mat that we've assembled here, and we showed how to make a cheaper version for a lot cheaper, but this is if you can get a plain white play mat for making custom mats. The perfect, you know, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Or just plain sized mat works for it. And we have our mat there. We'll kind of roll this up here and put it to the side, or fold it up a little bit. Now, of course, we got the cards. So we're at 2 out of 6 here. You know, we got the crests and the mat. Next, we need the cards. Now, we have a bunch in here that I've made up so far, but we're just showing the starter set for now. So we'll move some of these extra boys. You can check the card video off, some of the card videos that we made for them, the item one and other monsters. But we have, you know, the main line 6, Vorse Raider, Gearfried, Knight of Twin Swords, Strike Ninja, Buster Blader, Thunderball, and then we have 2 Monster Lords, the normal one and the Japanese one, which is just the same picture but kind of bigger. And you know, the Monster Lord is you. The actual original set would have came with a Monster Lord figure and then a Monster Lord like piece, like a little just a cardboard counter to use as your opponent's one. But of course, we made a card for either one, and I can print off more. I have another set for a different player. This, we have a video coming up on soon on how to make, but you can buy these. This one I did buy, but they are pretty simple to make. Just a dice tray for rolling your various dice, and this one happens to be double-sided. Recommend if you're playing a lot of dice games, picking up one of these, but of course, like I said, we'll have a video coming in the future on how to make them because they are relatively simple. But we'll move that to the side as well. And we'll show off some of the other pieces we got here. I've just made a big kind of display box here. It could be a lot smaller for reference purposes, future use. But we have our dungeon tiles here. Of course, all of the correct pieces we've gone through in the video and showed them off. Everything we showed specifically, so if you're looking to remake them, check out the different videos in the playlist for each specific piece, you know, counter card, tiles. But we have the tiles here, and of course, both double-sided. You didn't have to make them double-sided, but I did just to recreate the starter set in its entirety, you know, because they did have double-sided pieces. But, of course, you could have them single-sided. Next, moving into our figures, we have all of our boys here. What I've done is, for the Monster Lord, just used a Dream Clown, because he's one of my favorite cards. And the Monster Lord kind of card looks like a clown. Buster Blader. We got the Strike Ninja. The Vorse Raider. The Thunderball. And we don't have, there is no Knight of Twin Swords Yu-Gi-Oh card. But what we did for its art was, or no, not Twin Strike Ninja, sorry. But there is a Knight of Twin Swords Marauder. Is it no, it's not Twin Strike Ninja, is it? Is that what it, Knight of Twin Swords. Yeah, it is Knight of Twin Swords. I get them confused. But, we have him in place of the Knight of Twin Swords. Twin Swords Marauder, same thing, warrior, you know, 2 swords, twin sworded up. And then we showed off some of the other stuff for, like, the items in the item video and various ideas for that. And then I just got another Monster Lord one in here. And a couple extra ones. I had this in fill of the Strike Ninja, but there is one of these in Dungeon Dice Monsters. Same with the Karibo. Just some extra pieces that I had from various other videos. But that is, you know, the starter set monsters. And of course, like I said, all this stuff, I have the playlist below showing how to make. I thought this is just a nice little wrap-up video to the mainline series, which in the future, we'll try and upgrade all this stuff, maybe 3D print what we can. I was thinking, you know, like the dice, tiles, crest counters, stuff can be 3D printed. For maybe the, you know, figures, we could at least 3D print like a base, because the bases are just, like foam board or cardboard. But we do have the dice here as well. You know, here's your level 2s, all with the correct sides. I won't show them off in this video, but I did in the dice video. But we have all those there, kind of a large container for them. But like I said, this is just kind of my show-offy set until I can kind of get the pieces you know, maybe 3D printed or something a little bit more resilient. But these work just perfect, and we showed in the video we made them pretty strong, and there is ways to improve them. But that basically wraps up the entire, you know, Dungeon Dice Monsters set for the main series. We've showed off how to recreate it for pretty cheap, and it's not too time consuming. It's all relatively easy stuff to do, and this way you can enjoy Dungeon Dice Monsters just like, you know, you could maybe back in the day. But, you know, nowadays, obviously, it's relatively expensive or just hard to find, if at all. You know, most of it's been collected or thrown out over the ages or, you know, destroyed. Because the pieces, even themselves, if you do have them, they're pretty fragile. So, there's lots of ways, obviously, in the Dungeon Dice Monsters community, the subreddit. You know, lots of people are working on, you know, different versions of, like, computer Dungeon Dice Monsters. And of course, you never know, with a lot of games getting re-released with like the new collection, they could have Dungeon Dice Monsters stuff being re-released, the old Dungeon Dice Monsters video games. So you never know, with a lot of hype being built up around it, and maybe more people playing these and trying out stuff, you know, recreating it, a lot of people getting into the community, you never know. Konami could re-release some of the Dungeon Dice Monster stuff. Or maybe at least for maybe a Dungeon Dice Monsters 25th anniversary at some point. Who knows? But like I said, that pretty much wraps up everything for the mainline, cheap end version of the series. And then I said, like I've said before, we'll maybe come back in a little bit and recreate some of it with 3D printing and some other methods that may be a little bit more time-consuming, but turn out with better you know, results, more kind of eye-friendly stuff. But that is our main set. Oh, we can throw this under here. Like I said, I will have videos coming out for all the stuff that is pre-made, is stuff that we can have come out, but I do have a deck box video showing how to make a deck box. They don't necessarily need to be as big for Dungeon Dice Monsters, but of course, you could just fit multiple decks inside of one box. Other than that, like I said, make sure to check out the playlist for all the other videos in the series. This is part 9. Took about 8 to get here. And of course, check out my other videos. I do lots of other DIY projects, like I mentioned. Other dice stuff, just how to make normal 6-sided dice, dice towers, stuff like that. As well as like ghost foil cards, you know, ghost rares, stuff like that, different various card-related, trading card game, dice game related projects, as well as, you know, deck profiles and stuff like that, and pack openings. So I recommend you check out my other stuff. I recommend you like, comment, share, and subscribe if you like the video. We're almost at 500 subs. As well, you know, make sure to hit that little notification bell so you know when future stuff's coming out. YouTube will let you know. And otherwise, thanks for watching. Peace.